Joseph Cardinal Zen was born in Shanghai to Catholic parents. Before his parents were married, his father had hoped to become a priest. But when he applied to the rector of the seminary, he was told that his son, not he, would become a priest. After 6 daughters, Joseph Zen was born in 1932. Cardinal Zen was ordained to the priesthood in Rome in 1961. He served for many years as a professor at the Salesian House of Studies in Hong Kong and was bishop of that city from 2002 to 2009. He has been a lifelong anti-communist and supporter of the underground church in China. So when Christians across China saw his elevation to the cardinalate as a great hope and a sign for them amidst much of their suffering. And so, on behalf of the Pioleonine Society, the Newman Center, and the Collegium Institute, I have the great honor of presenting to you His Eminence, Joseph Cardinal Zen.
Good evening, everybody. Here is old man and still restless, and accepted invitation to come just for 2 purposes. One is to celebrate the wonderful Tridentine Mass, and then the other is to meet you this evening. I'm from Shanghai, a Salesian, used to teach in our seminary, but also had a chance to teach in the seminaries in China under the control of the government from 89 to 96 for 7 years, spending 6 months a year in China, 6 months in Hong Kong. So I think I have good credentials to talk about China. Not only because of my birth in Shanghai, but also because of those 7 years living in China. And then as a Salesian provincial superior, and then as a teacher in mainland China, then as a bishop in Hong Kong, I had much to do also with the Holy See. And then I made a cardinal by Pope Benedict. And with all this much credential, I come here this evening to tell you a very sad story about the church in China and about also the situation in Hong Kong. The communists took over in 1949. I was already in Hong Kong. But in China, they started immediately the persecution because they are Marxists, atheists. The first thing, they sent away all the missionaries. You know, the communists are clever enough. They did not fight the church, the religion, but they say, we are coming to free you from the imperialists. So they took all the missionaries for imperialists. So they even asked the faithful to make petition to expel the representative of the Holy Father in China. The Salesians, I'm a Salesian, the Salesians run education. So we have many boys in our schools. And they took all our schools, and they sent away all the missionaries. But not just sent away. First, they staged up some public trial. to condemn these imperialists. They are all criminals, and then send them away. Once the missionaries are away, they targeted the local clergy. And they were punished for being ill-treated by the missionaries. That's very ridiculous. But the serious persecution starts from the very beginning. But only in 1955, the big persecution exploded. And so all those who refused to follow the government, to set up an independent church, they were put in prison or labor camp. And we have so many who died in the prison. Especially the big persecution in Shanghai. In one night, they arrested almost 1,000 people. The bishop, the vicar general, the rector of the seminary, priests, nuns, and young people, many young people, especially belonging to the region of Mary. Another part of the church, for any reason, they thought it may be convenient to come to some compromise. So they accepted to set up this independent church. Maybe they were afraid, or maybe they thought that they can still do some evangelical work. But then came the Cultural Revolution. Those put in prison in the 50s, they were already in prison, protected by the state. And the Red Guards could not get into the prison. But those who obeyed the government, who were running the independent church, they suffered even more than those already in prison. At the end, they all in prison or labor camp, and all the religions disappeared for 10 years, from 66 to 76. To our surprise, even before the end of the Cultural Revolution, they opened a little door to us people in Hong Kong. I could not go back to Shanghai for 26 years. Finally, in 1974, I could go back, but it was a terrible thing, terrible thing. The religion all disappeared. And the whole nation was like a concentration camp, like a barrack. They all dressed in the same way, boys and girls. And Shanghai, the most prosperous city, remained dead. No new building in 26 years. And the old building never painted for 26 years. Incredible. Very depressing view. And that was in 1974. Fortunately, then came the open policy. But the open policy, that means to open to a communism Chinese style. That means a state capitalism. And that favored corruption. And so it led to Tiananmen Square. The young people wanted to have a good government and the real progress, and so they started protesting in the Tiananmen Square, and all the movement was crushed. Now, as a Salesian, I was assigned to teach in the seminary, so I have been to Italy to study for 9 years, to get degree in philosophy and in theology. Then in the 64, back to Hong Kong, teaching in the Salesian Seminary and the Diocesan Seminary, philosophy and theology. Then I had a very privileged opportunity to go to teach in the seminaries on mainland. Not in the underground, that was impossible, but exactly the seminary under control of the government. I had to wait for 4 years to get permission. And so finally I could go to teach in Shanghai, my native city. And also because the seminary was under the hill. On the hill, it's the holy shrine of Our Lady, Help of Christians. And we Salesians are particularly devout of Our Lady, Help of Christians, Auxilium Christianorum. And then at the foot of the hill was the seminary. It was a wonderful experience. First of all, it was a discovery. We used to have, clear-cut distinction between the underground, good guys, faithful, and those in the official church, they are renegade. But it was not so. Once we are in the seminary, we find they are our people. We are in the family, very faithful, even more than we are outside. I heard some expression during the prayer of the faithful, so moving that you cannot hear during the modern years, so full of devotion to the Holy Father. So I enjoyed teaching there in the seminary. And all the seminaries, I started from Shanghai, but then later all the seminaries were open to us. So I could teach in Xi'an, in Wuhan, in Shijiazhuang, in Beijing, in Shenyang. 7 seminaries, and all full of seminarians. In Shanghai, there were 120. In Hebei, the big seminary, almost 200. So I enjoy so much. And all the priests, seminarians, they are our people. We are in the family. They suffer the harassment by the government, but they were happy to have some friend from abroad to teach there. So wonderful time in the seminary. But in the same time, wonderful time for us, also for them because of our presence, but the situation is terrible. The office, the Bureau for Religious Affairs is always making trouble to the seminary, to the church. And the Chinese are very good in passive resistance. They know they cannot fight the government, but But then at the weekend, I go to my sister's place in Shanghai. And also, when teaching in the other seminary, I could go out. You discover a very sad reality. The communists have not only destroyed the material things, they destroyed the quality of the people. We Chinese, we are peaceful people, hardworking, honest, friendly. But then, after several years of communism, I find the people very selfish, very cruel. you can feel violence everywhere. I remember a book where the late Cardinal Martini, the biblical scholar, talking about Passion of Jesus. He said, why those soldiers so cruel to Jesus, such a kind person? He said, there is something mysterious. They were ill-treated by their superiors, very, very cruel, the superiors. So when they have a chance, maybe unconsciously, they take revenge on innocent people. So it was a very sad experience to see our people changed. I have 45 minutes. It's already 40 minutes. I want to talk now about the main topic, the situation of our church in China. I mentioned the beginning of the persecution, and then the Cultural Revolution, and then the free policy of the government. So with this open policy, there could be exchange between Hong Kong and China. And when we started teaching in the seminary, we got so many information and good information. So we told the Holy See. At that time, the prefect of the Congregational Evangelization was Cardinal Tomko from Czechoslovakia. Very good man and very wise, very good friend of Pope John Paul II. So he started from a very, hard position. But then, after receiving so many good news, he opened. And so, during those years, we had many secret meetings. Meeting combined the two dicasteries, the Secretary of State and the Congregation of Evangelization, and they invited also 5 or 6 bishop priests from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. And after some investigation, they accepted many petitions by the illegitimate bishops ordained under the pressure of the government. Actually, they were good people. But, if you refuse, you finish in the prison, you die there. Okay. So, given the freedom of communication, the Holy See considered the cases. After some investigation, approved many of them, and even the new elected bishop in the official church, they were courageous enough to write to the Holy Father, unless you approve, we don't accept the ordination. And then after some investigation, they were found good people, also allowed to receive that. So there was a kind of compromise, but to the consolation of everybody. So those were rather good years. But then, the church is made of people, of human beings. And they are fallible, they are weak. So after Cardinal Tomko, in that congregation, which is directly in charge of the church also in China, there was a void for 5-6 years because the successor of Cardinal Tomko was not that capable. But then Pope Benedict came. Pope Benedict, he comes from Germany. and Germany suffered, and the Nazism and the communism, the division of the two Germanys. And he is a great theologian. And he took part in those secret meetings because as head of the Congregation for Doctrine, many times we have to discuss about the doctrine. And so he was very well informed about the situation of the church in China. So when he was elected Pope, he did two things wonderful. In the year 2007, he wrote a letter to the church in China, in the Chinese Republic. Wonderful letter. A masterpiece of balance between the clarity of the doctrine and also the open attitude of understanding of all kinds of people. And then he set up also a huge commission for church in China. 30 more people, half of them from the Holy See or the experts of different departments, and half of them from the front line, from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. But unfortunately, Pope Benedict, he said, I'm not good for governance. Somebody described Pope Benedict as a very hard man. You're so sweet. Once I met the retired Anglican Archbishop. He was a very good friend of Pope Benedict. I said, oh, what do you say about our Pope? He said, he is very shy. Exact definition. Shy. He was reluctant to use his authority. Now in the Vatican, there is a group of people very powerful because they are many years there. And they think they know better. They did not follow Pope Benedict. Oh, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but my conscience tells me I'm the only one who can speak out, and I think everybody, the mature people like you, deserve the truth, okay? So they spoil the work of Pope Benedict. They are disciples of Casalori, of the school of Ostpolitik. But Casalori was a good man. I don't dare to say the same thing about this group. I read the book by Casalori. He had his mission to try this Ostpolitik of compromise, but he was an honest man, and he had high respect for those heroes of faith in those communist countries. The Ostpolitik policy made them suffer. But still this Cardinal Casalori had high respect. In his memoir he said, I saw in these persons heroes, faithful servant of God. But now these other people, they went their own way. In the Holy See, the two departments care for the church in China. One is the Congregation for Evangelization. And by that time, the head was Cardinal Diaz. He had a wonderful CV. He worked many years in the Holy See, in the Secretary of State, and He was sent nuncio in a number of countries, and by that time he was the Archbishop in Bombay. So when he was chosen as prefect of the Congregation for Evangelization, everyone was very happy because an Asian to head that congregation. But he had illusion about that Ostpolitik. And in the Secretary of State, the one who lead the negotiation with China is the subsecretary. So simple Monsignor, not even bishop, because the negotiator should not be very high level. Okay. It happens to be Monsignor Parolin, really very accomplished diplomat. But then we discovered that they were following the Ostpolitik, making all kinds of concessions to the Chinese government, not following the line of the Pope. So the Pope basically made me a cardinal to help him for the church in China, not for Hong Kong. But Cardinal Diaz told me, you just get out. At a certain moment, between Cardinal Diaz and Monsignor Parolin, they prepared a draft of agreement which I have no evidence to say that, but I am 90% certain of the reality. Pope Benedict refused to sign because there was big rumor, oh, the agreement is coming, and all of a sudden silence. And we can see that the Pope took some decision. So he stopped that direction of the negotiation. He sent away Parolin, promoting him Archbishop Nuncio in Venezuela. And he called somebody different to pursue another direction. But unfortunately, his health could not bear the office, so he renounced the office and retired. He wrote a wonderful letter, very balanced, but the Congregation for Evangelization dared to manipulate the Chinese translation. And the commission could not work because the preparation of the meeting and the work after the meetings are all in the hands of those powerful people. They say, oh, the last word is always of the Holy Father. But I said, sometimes it's not last word, it's the last second word which is important. And you have last second word, and we don't have. The commission can talk, but the power is in the hands of these people. So unfortunately, they wasted those years of Pope Benedict. Then comes Pope Francis. Actually, he was one of my 5 favorites. I had no part in the conclave because I'm already over age. But I had 5 my 5 names, and he was one of the 5 because I worked with him in some of these post-synodal council. Twice, I think, we were elected member of this post-synodal council, and to prepare the apostolic exhortation. I found him so pastoral, really caring for the people. And you know, in South America, the people, the suffering people, but he had his experience. In South America, the communists are good guys. Why? Because they speak for the people. And they are persecuted by the military government in collusion with the rich people. And they are really persecuted, even killed by the government. So Pope must have some sympathy for those communists. And he had no experience of the other communists. In South America, the communists are persecuted communists. But in our country, they are the persecutors. Very harsh persecution. Pope Francis called this Parolin from Venezuela to become the Secretary of State. But at that time, I applauded the selection because I always knew this Parolin as a very kind man, sweet talking. But when he reached that position of power, I came to know something very different. As chairman of that commission for Church in China, he made the commission disappear. Disappear, I say. Normally, the Holy See is all very polite. There would be a letter saying the Holy Father thinks that this commission has fulfilled its historical role. Now, thank you for the work you have done. That would be okay. But no word. He dismissed us, no word. Why? He didn't like to listen to us. Oh, he had listened enough in 5 years before as the main negotiator. But, during the years of Cardinal Tomko, in those secret meetings, we were briefed about the unofficial negotiation. But now, in this huge commission, we were not briefed. We didn't know anything about negotiation. But my surprise, very sad surprise, which made me know the real Cardinal Parolin, is when I read from the Osservatore Romano, a speech commemorating Casaroli, and Parolin said, Cardinal Casaroli did miracles because in all those communist countries, we succeeded to set up the hierarchy, to appoint bishops. Yeah, but not always bishops of our choice. Many times under pressure of the government. And then he carried on, he said, when we look for bishops, we look for shepherds. We don't look for gladiators. Gladiators are those fight in the Colosseum. We don't look for people who oppose the government systematically. We don't look for people who show themselves on the political stage. So I wrote him, I said, Your Eminence, whom you have in mind when you make such a description? You were talking about Cardinal Wyszynski in Poland, Cardinal Mincenty of Hungary, Cardinal Baron of Czechoslovakia. They were heroes of faith. They suffered so much. They are the support of their people. You despise them. You consider them as troublemakers. He answered without denying. He just said, oh, if my speech displeased somebody, I'm sorry. I said, you don't have to be sorry to me. You offended those heroes of faith. You have to apologize in public. It was a public speech. Okay, you didn't mention names, okay, huh? But everybody could understand. So he had no faith. A person who despises the hero of faith doesn't have faith. So what happened recently under Parolin as Secretary of State? Now you say, oh, he is not the highest authority. The Pope is the highest authority. Yes. But as I said, the Pope may not understand the things about the Church and the Church in China. And the Pope needed Parolin for many diplomatic undertaking. And just to make sure that you don't have to be worried, I tell you that the Pope likes me so much. Sometimes embarrasses me. In some occasion, I just among the bishops and the cardinals, you go, oh, Cardinal Zen, come here, and out of all the rules of the ceremony, you want to embrace me. I couldn't refuse, but I felt embarrassed. Why me especially? And once on the St. Peter's Square, he looked at me. Oh, this is the one who goes to the battle with the sling. I was fighting the government in Hong Kong, and he compared me with David. So it's a compliment, is it? And then I hope you have noticed one of the interview by Reuters, a long interview. At the end, they asked question, oh, Holy Father, what about this Cardinal Zen? He answered, oh, yes, I know him. Cardinal Zen is a good man. Mind you, Cardinal Zen is a good man. Yeah. But then he said, but he is a little fearful. Maybe the age may have something to do. But I thought, I'm not fearful. I'm just worried, because I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose at my age. I'm 88. You don't think I'm aspiring to become the next Pope? And I'm not afraid because I have no superior except the Pope. So Parolin may be very angry with me, but I can still say everything according to my conscience, according to the facts. Now, unfortunately, following that famous Ostpolitik, the church in China now is at the bottom. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. As I said, since the years of Pope Benedict, they didn't follow him. So the church in China was weakened. The underground, for all these years, did not receive support. When all the bishops died, they were not given successors. Now, a church without bishops Now we have less than 30 bishops in the underground. They always tell the people in the underground, be quiet, be quiet. And then in the official church, as I said, there were so many good people, some very courageous. They are born in that church, and many bishops were legitimized, and the Holy See, the Pope, never asked them to make a revolution in that church because it's simply impossible. And the popes, starting from John the 23rd to Pope Paul and the Pope John Paul II, they abstain from calling that church schismatic. But it is schismatic in structure because it's independent. Even Pope Francis, at the very beginning of his pontificate, he granted me a private audience of 45 minutes. I spoke for 40 minutes about church in China, not about Hong Kong, and he interrupted me only once when I said, Holy Father, you know very well that the official church in China objectively is schismatic. And he said, certo, of course. But because of this Ostpolitik, the church went down. Why? Because they encourage the bad people. The bishops, whom even Pope Benedict calls opportunists, those who are on the side of the government, not good bishops. So the good bishops and good priests get less and less influential in that church. So now come the end. 3 steps. First is a secret agreement on the selection of bishops. Why should it be secret? Oh, it's provisional. Even provisional should be public, because otherwise, how can we collaborate to work according to that agreement? And I, as a Chinese cardinal, I'm not given a view of the agreement. It's secret also for me. Now, you know, the Chinese are masters in playing with words. Very probably, I don't know who translate that agreement in Italian, because the translation of Pope's letter was wrong. But maybe, I think probably Pope Benedict may have been cheated. He cannot read the Chinese text, okay? But unfortunately, Parolin cannot be cheated. He knows everything. So he wants to be cheated, okay? It's secret, so we don't know the content, but we can guess. They talk about democratic election. Can you believe democratic election in China? Then the second step, nomination by the Bishops' Conference. The Bishops' Conference is fake. They say, who runs the church in China? The Patriarchal Association and Bishops' Conference, always together. So not the Bishops' Conference. Patriarchal Association even comes first. But then, who chairs the meeting? Government officials. They don't even try to hide the truth. They showed photographs. the head of the Bureau for Religious Affairs from the government, he chairs the meeting. And the people of the Political Association, Bishop Conference, just, receiving orders. But without the agreement, there was a good compromise. The Holy See, when they know that a diocese needs a bishop, they make one or two names, not appointment, just one or two names, secret for you, for me, but not for the government. So they show the government, these two names, okay. What names? Not the best choice, because it would not be acceptable to the government, but the Holy See consider good enough, and they hoped they would be accepted also by the government. So the government said, these two names are not the best, but okay. So they tell the people, vote for this one. And these people, they knew also, secretly, that name was approved already by the Pope. So everybody happy. So officially is a name chosen by the government, but actually it's acceptable also. And after their election, their approval, the Holy See comes out saying, yes, we approve also. Everybody happy. In the year 2010, there were 9 such ordination of bishops with double approval. But then, at the end of that year, the government chose a bishop for a diocese which does not exist. So the Holy See could not approve. How can we approve a diocese we don't have? And they ordained that bishop all the same. Illegitimate. So now, with the agreement, they don't need to know what Rome would accept. They just go their own way because whole power is given into the hands of the government. The fake election, the fake nomination, and they say, they see the Holy Father, okay. And the Holy Father say, I have the last word, so don't be worried. I say, unless I can see the text of the agreement, I don't believe that there's such a word, such a sentence in the agreement to say that the Pope has the last word. Impossible. No. Maybe something similar. Maybe say, if the Holy Father doesn't accept our choice, then okay, we may discuss something like that. So, no agreement, much better than the agreement. Second step, at the same time, they legitimized 7 illegitimate bishops, excommunicated. To lift excommunication is something easy, just to be sure of their repentance. But to make them bishops now, terrible. 2 of the 7 have wife and children. And all 7, they perform so many acts of defiance against the Holy See. Terrible. Ordaining priests. And they didn't show any repentance. No thanks to the Holy Father for dispensing them from the excommunication. Nothing. Now they just sing triumph. Because, and they laugh at the other good bishops fighting within the same a structure. They say, you see, we made the right choice. The government obtained for us the legitimization. And they go around the world, probably also in the United States, triumphant. Terrible, terrible thing. And it happens that in 2 of those 7 dioceses, there is also one legitimate bishop in the ground. The Holy See asked them to step down, to make space for the excommunicated. Terrible. By that time, Archbishop Xavier Horn was leaving the Holy See and being sent to Greece to be the nuncio there. Okay, so he had chance to see the Holy Father, and he told the Holy Father about this. The 2 bishops asked to step down. The Holy Father said, "It's not right. Why they did not consult me? I'm going to look into the matter." Archbishop Xavier referred to me. The 3 said, okay, we have hope. The Holy Father may intervene. So after 2 or 3 months, I went to Rome. So I asked Holy Father, have you had any opportunity to look into the matter? And he said, yes. I told them not to create another Mincenti case. Fantastic, fantastic. Huh? I couldn't expect better answer. Mincenti, in Hungary, in a short, successful revolution, he was freed from prison and took refuge in the American embassy. And the government wanted the Vatican to send him away from Hungary. So the Holy Father, Pope VI, asked the Vincenti, please leave your country so that we can negotiate with the government. And he said, Holy Father, if you invite me, I say no. You have to command me, because this is my country. I want to die here with my people. So finally the Pope said, I'm sorry, I have to command you, because you want to try some negotiation. So he was sent away and given immediately a successor. That was a big tragedy for the whole people of Hungary. Okay. So I enjoyed the answer. But then the facts, they made the 2 Mincenti cases. They commanded the 2 to step down. Now, the one in Santau is old enough. Actually, he asked for a successor for a long time, but never received. But now they ask him to give the place to the excommunicated one. Okay. The other one, in Mingdong, in Fukien, he was asked to be low-graded, to become the auxiliary bishop. He obeyed. But then they tell him, no, you first have to sign the document to join the Patriotic Association. Then we can recognize you as auxiliary bishop. He said, no. You told me I am the auxiliary bishop. No condition. Now you put the condition. I cannot accept that. So recently you must have received the news. He was just forced to leave his residence because they say it's not according to the fire prevention regulation. I don't know. And the news said, now the poor bishop is on the street. I said, that may be exaggeration. Because he, in the diocese, he has 80% of the priests and faithful. So everybody would welcome him in their home. But then later I learned that the government explicitly forbid anybody who received the bishop will be punished. So he's really on the street now. So terrible things happen there. But most terrible is the last act. Last June, the 28th of June, a document came. You forgive me. I take 4 more minutes. A document from the Holy See. Never any document from the Holy See, either from the Pope or from a specified department, and with 2 signatures. But this document, no department specified and no signature, but everybody know it comes from Cardinal Parolin. The document says you have to sign a document to be registered and to be ministering, in the public. So all the underground, you are encouraged to do that. The document is not good because you have to promise to join the independent church. But anyway, sign it. They are encouraged to sign a bad document, a document accepting a dependent church, a schismatic church. Oh, but in the meantime, you try to make some protest, written better, but even verbal, with a testimony or without. What kind of moral theology they are following? Whom they are cheating? Not themselves, not the government. They want to cheat the whole world. Sign a bad document against our faith and make some protest at the same time. Oh, they say, okay, if in your conscience you feel that you cannot do that, we respect your conscience. Fortunately, there is such a clause there. Now the people in China, I can never contact them. They cannot never contact me, but sometimes they succeed to come to Hong Kong. Now, few succeed to come to Hong Kong, but many other bring the message. They ask me what to do. I said, what can I say? The Pope says it's okay. You should not blame those people who joined the Pedagogical Association. But Pope Benedict said no. Now Pope Francis is the Pope, so we don't make any revolution, okay? But if in your conscience you say you cannot accept that, but don't resist. If you resist, they arrest you. They make you pay, and they put you in prison. So go home. Go home. And I tell them the doctrine. You can renounce to sacraments, but you cannot renounce to faith. The bishops, the priests who are in prison, they have no mass, but they are full of grace. God has thousands of ways to give you grace. There is an old theological saying that God has not bound his hands with the sacraments. The sacrament made easier the way we receive grace. But if you are in the impossibility or precisely to defend your faith, you have to renounce to sacrament, God is with you. But now you can no more have your churches, because till now, even underground have churches, church buildings, big churches. But now no more. Now everyone belongs to the Pedagogical Association. It's very sad. It's very sad. Because till now, there is still much tolerance of the underground. Because especially the local officials, they don't want to have more trouble than they have. So if a village or a town with many underground Catholics, and they are peaceful. They work hard. In that village, in that town, no fight, no robbery. Huh? So the government has no reason to arrest these people. And can you arrest them all? They are the majority. Huh? But now, they can no more tolerate. Because the law was against them having churches. But they were tolerated. Now, you may say, okay, they can still say Mass in the private home. No. Till now, they tolerate. For example, in Shanghai, the big city, you cannot have churches. The government would lose face. So many foreigners, they may say, oh, there are underground churches. But the underground priests say Mass on Sunday. And a huge crowd go there. When I was in Shanghai, teaching in the seminary, the people from the public security, they are more friends. They were telling me, tell your confrere to be more discreet. I said, what happened? He says Mass and keeps the door open. I said, oh. So I asked my confrere, why you keep the door? He said, I have a small room. And then they feed the staircase, they feed the kitchen down there, and still people keep coming. I could not close the door. But everybody knows that Mass is going on in that, and nobody object that. Nobody go to denounce to the government. Huh? Now no more. Now all this should disappear. And now, even in the official church, the people under 18 years of age cannot go into the church. It's law for a long time, but not enforced. Now they enforce the law. So I forgot Hong Kong, but Hong Kong is a small matter. China is the big matter. So I hope you accept my witness and pray because this is the only thing we can do. When people ask me what we can do, I don't know what to tell you. The first thing is to pray. The second thing, I think, is to get the right information. Because there are so many voices from Rome, from Italy, wrong voices. Sometimes may be simply wrong, sometimes may even be lies. And so get my book to read. You know, I've written a book. For the sake of my people, I cannot keep quiet. It's about the letter of Pope Benedict, but with all the background. Read the book, the second thing you can do. And so I'm thank you for your patience. And maybe we can still have a few minutes for question. I'm a hard hearing, so to make question, you have to come here so I can catch your question. Maybe two or three. Yeah. You invite people.
So, as the Cardinal was totally generous enough, gracious enough to accept a number of questions, there are a lot of us here, and we have not an abundant amount of time. So if you could, think about your question, and remember, as I've said before, to formulate it as a question. Okay? So not as a speech, and please keep it concise, brief. We'll try to get perhaps a few up before the Cardinal addresses them in turn. So what questions do we have? Right. Please stand too.
Come here.
Thank you for speaking to us. Do you have any idea how the Chinese church might become more, I guess, culturally or indigenously Chinese, whether through the liturgy or through theology, in a way that's not really following the Communist Party, but still being Chinese rather than completely Westernized?
Okay, very good question. You see, when I started teaching, I was the first one, and then many other could go to teach. We teach the doctrine exactly as in any part of the world. We are allowed to teach the right doctrine. So that's no problem. But now, there are problems. Now they talk about Sinicization. Sinicization, from the Latin word sina, sine, sinarum, is China. So what does that mean? Some people think, oh, that's the so-called inculturation. So we have the same thing. You have Sinicization, we have the inculturation, the same thing. It's not same thing. Sinicization means your faith should be conformed to the authority of the government. Now they say we need to have new translation of the Bible according to the Chinese rules. So terrible. So somebody say, oh, we can see the church is full of people. Yes, many are young, new Catholics. They simply don't understand what does it mean to be legitimate, not legitimate. But sooner or later, they find that this is not Catholic Church, especially because many of the bishops are just servants of the government and not of the church.
Questions? Yes, on the couch.
Thank you very much for coming, Cardinal.
Yeah.
My question, what differences does the Chinese government tell the official church to teach from what they should be teaching?
I don't know exactly, but surely you must know that recently the chairman of the Patriarchal Association, a bishop, during the People's Congress, interviewed by somebody, he said, we are Catholics, but we are Chinese, so the faithfulness to our country, to the party comes first, and then the faithfulness to our church. He said that. So I think I don't know the details, but obviously obedience to the party is paramount. To obey to the party. So how can that be Catholic Church? So any other question? I enjoyed the 7 years of teaching in China because we were allowed full freedom. Also because we started teaching in those seminaries right after the Tiananmen Square. During that time, everybody was going out of China, But I entered to China. That means I trust them. So they treated us very kindly. But now no more, now no more. Now it's very difficult to get several seminaries closed. At that time, the seminary were full of people. Shanghai, 120. Now the seminary closed. In Hebei, there were almost 200. And now still going on, but maybe less. And several other seminaries also closed, or now very few people. Also because during those years in the seminary, you have people already a little advanced in age because they had to wait for 20 years before they reopened the seminaries. But now the situation is very bad.
How have laws like the one-child policy or other laws that aren't specifically targeting religion affected the practice of everyday Catholic families in China?
I mentioned something terrible, which is that people under 18 years of age cannot join any religious activity. Then you must have heard that they tear down the crosses from many churches. And the reason is sometimes it's not according to the construction regulation. Sometimes this is too visible. We are in a socialist country. Now you make it like a holy land. And so all those excuses, sometimes if you refuse to tear down the cross, they may even demolish the church. And now you have to install the cameras in the church. They check on your sermon, and in few churches, they even force you to put the image of Xi Jinping. So all such things. And it's continuous harassment. So sometimes you hear people to say that in the underground they enjoy more freedom. In some way it's true, because in the underground you may be arrested any moment because you are out of law, but they don't do it always. There's something they tolerate. So if you are not arrested, you can go around, you can do many things. But those in the official church, they are constantly under harassment, because they always tell you to do this, do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. Terrible. Last question. Oh, there are three. The three last questions. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. You come here, please.
Can we get all of them just
Yeah.
in turn, and then you can address them
Yeah,
all
you come
at
here,
once?
come here,
Yeah.
one by one. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much, Cardinal Chen.
Loud.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my question is, what do you see the future of the Catholic Church in China? And also, if you have any suggestion for Pope, what kind of recommendation you will have for him?
Okay.
That's one.
Yeah. Okay. You make question first. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Cardinal. My question is more about Hong Kong, which you said is a lesser issue, but I still have a question about it. With the protests and the municipal elections and even the presidential elections in Taiwan, it seems to be a big display of the people of Hong Kong and Taiwan and these places to be opposing CCP governance, and especially the way I see it, one of the big reasons for that is because of religious freedom. So what do you think is the future of Hong Kong, especially as China tries to get more power in there?
Okay.
Thank you, Cardinal. So my question is more spiritual. So you mentioned how the bishops in the prison, they renounce their sacraments yet still preserve their grace. So my question is, how does one preserve their grace without the sacraments, even when it gets hard to pray and to have hope?
Yeah. Okay. So first, the future of the church in China, humanly speaking, is desperate because the underground is going to die. They don't have bishops anymore, and so you don't have new priests, and they have no more their churches. And in the official church now, unfortunately, the bad elements have the upper hand, and the good have to suffer. But then we have to remember the history. The church never died under persecution. Die when they renounce their faith. And so we can be always confident. The primitive church suffered persecution for 300 years. In Japan, many years without missionary, without church, the faith persevered in the families. So I think we can be optimistic. So resist, and the Holy Scripture always say, resist till the end. Not only 70 years, not 80 years, but till the end. So the prayer can help them. And even without the possibility of sacraments, without the Bible, without the rosary, you can pray. You can pray. You have so many examples, like Bishop Van Thuan in Vietnam. He has written a booklet. So we have to believe that God is always with those who are faithful to Him. The second question about Hong Kong. Hong Kong was promised the principle of one country, two systems, promised high degree of autonomy. But how high that autonomy went down, down, down in those 20 years. Now there were several moments when the people stood up. For example, in the year 2003, when they want to legislate the Article 23. That means to make the law against revolution. We were not against the existence of a law. It was a concession to have an anti-revolution law in Hong Kong and not made by the Chinese government. But the Chinese government made a very bad draft. So we stood up and said, no, keep time to present a better draft, and we need time for consultation. Then they refused. That's why all people stood up. And finally they retreated. They withdrew that law. But then 5 years ago, 3 Protestant people, very good people, 2 professors of university, one is a pastor, they thought we need to have something done, because they promised democratic election already for the year 2007, 2008. So it's time they gave us. So they started a movement called Occupy Center. The name was unfortunate because it was not Occupy Center. It's about having a real democratic formula for election. Only in case the government refuses to do that, then we may occupy the center. Also, the plan to occupy the center is very limited. To occupy the financial district of center for very few days, 3 or 5 days, just an act of severe disobedience to force the government to speak out, to answer our questions. It failed because the students, very good and very courageous, they stood up, but they took that movement in their hands, and they are without experience. And so the government had the easy job to play game with that group. So the Occupy lasted more than 3 months, and much of the population, annoyed, and so we got nothing. But now, this year, they propose a law about extradition of people who are accused in China. At the beginning, we didn't notice any big problem, but then the lawyers are telling us that's very dangerous. That means if you do something, you do anything, or you say anything against Chinese government, they can ask the Hong Kong government to hand it over to the Chinese court. There is no justice. And then soon you may appear on television saying, yes, I'm guilty. So it's very dangerous. So the people stood, again, 1 million, 2 millions. Hong Kong has only 7 million people, okay? Peaceful march. Always peaceful. But the government didn't listen. Now there's a group of brave people, young people. They do something more brave, but dangerous. I am almost the only one who can speak out. I criticize these young people because their way is not effective, because what can you do? What do you mean by being brave? They say, be water. Okay, be water. And they say, we are against a platform. That means against the leadership, against organization. Be like water. But what can you achieve? They always complain that you old people, for these 20 and more years, you achieve nothing. You shout all the time. I tell them, you are ungrateful. Because we old people, we keep shouting, now you grow so wise and intelligent. Otherwise, by now, you ought be renegades, because the communists are masters in brainwashing. So I said, the peaceful thing is not wasted, is important. But, okay, you are our brothers. You risk your life for us. So we admire, we never separate ourselves from you. But be careful, because the violence is dangerous, and especially the escalation. But now comes the virus to help the city to calm down a little. But we don't see any future. Humanly speaking, no hope for the church in China and for Hong Kong, because they don't listen to you. And since you are peaceful, they are not afraid of you. So, terrible situation. So, in such situation, what we can do? We believe in prayer. And the prayer can make miracles. Why not? Why not? When people ask me how long the communism is going to last, I say maybe other 50 years, or maybe 5 weeks. Oh, 5 weeks? Why not? Nobody expected the Berlin Wall to fall. It fell. So I hope in 5 weeks' time you send me your congratulations.